All right, good evening and welcome to the Film Project, Season 5, Session 11. We are ready to go. All right. Okay. I think
It's going to be yet another fun one.
it is going to be a fun one. There's a lot of little things happening in this episode.
There is. There's a lot. Yeah.
And I'm just going to say at the beginning, there are a bunch of questions to which I have no idea the answer as we're starting. No
Hey, did
clue.
we do the bad guys in the last episode?
Nope, we didn't
Did
do
we talk
bad
bad
guys
guys?
yet.
We haven't done the bad guys
Nope.
yet. Okay. I just want to make sure. You know, it gets to be late in the evening and my brain just kind of,
Yep.
liquefies.
No, we haven't done
then
a
I don't
full
remember.
bad guy discussion yet, and
Okay.
some of that I think is
All right.
going to be connected with the end of things, with where
Right.
we're ending up here. Yeah. Oh no, Marie, I'm not
Right.
suggesting I'm going to end tonight with no answers. I'm just telling you I'm not coming in with the answers. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. This is where the magic happens.
The best kind of night.
Exactly. It's a clean slate kind of evening. We'll see. No, I have a couple notions, but yeah, there's some things that I'm going to be really interested to hear what you guys have to say. And, but no, I'm actually serious about the magic. Like this is what I love, doing this stuff. This is why I love doing this stuff live. The suggestions you guys make on the air, and it's always really
The
good.
synthesis.
It's it.
Yes.
It. Yeah, I mean, like I would never think of most of the things I think of if I didn't have you guys to inspire me,
Yeah.
and to work with here. So, okay, but I'm ready to start if you guys are.
Hit it, Dave.
All right. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Pausing for the convenience of the editors. Hello and welcome back to our first post-virtual Myth Moot Silmarillion film project. That was kind of a
When you said
mouthful.
first, I was like, what's the first going to be? Okay.
I think this is how a lot of people account time.
Right.
Days until Myth Moot, and then when you're on the other side of it, it's days since
Exactly.
Myth Moot.
Since
Exactly.
Myth
Until we start
Until the
counting down
midpoint.
to the until the announcment for Myth Moot 8, at which point it'll be days until Myth Moot 8.
That's right.
Got
That's
a whole
right.
new calendar system.
Like it's like the sun rising and falling, pretty much.
There you go.
Exactly.
There you go.
So yes, I am your co-host Dave Kale, and I unfortunately, due to various family commitments and having to watch the kids while my wife worked, did not manage to log in to Myth Moot, sadly. But hopefully, I'll catch some of the recordings later.
Yep.
But now let's talk to some folks who did participate. Corey Olson, the Tolkien professor, and wait, Trish, did you get to
I
go?
did not. I was
Oh.
unwell, actually, so I did
Oh,
not make it.
Sorry to
man.
hear that.
So 2 bummers.
Yeah.
And
But
Yeah.
we
Then, of course,
did
we-
have an
We
awesome
flaked
time.
on him.
yes.
We did
Yeah,
have
I've
an
heard
awesome
great
time.
things.
And this was a particularly noteworthy Myth Moot for many reasons. But in the film context, it was very noteworthy because we had the first ever live performance of a film script. We, Rhiannon and Marie, organized a full cast dramatic performance of season 4, episode 7. So this was the episode which started with the interlude with Galadriel and Celeborn by the river, which was cute, and then the arrival of Círdan and his spilling the beans to Thingol about the kinslaying, and
Wow, that was
and
a good episode.
yeah, and then Finrod and Angrod getting arrested, right, and the whole like uncertainty and suspicions with then Luthien and Galadriel stuff, and then of course the final declaration of the ban at the end of the episode, and of
That's
course
awesome.
the B plot of that episode was the one where Caranthir and Curufin and Amros, mostly Caranthir and Curufin, were negotiating with the dwarves so we got to meet
Oh, right.
Telkar, and it was really fun. It was really good. It was great. I played Amros and Maglor. Or sorry, not Maglor, Mablung. I apologize, misspoke. And Mario wants me.
Yes, I understand you had a different hat for each character,
Yeah,
right?
so
you-
like I just we were there were varying levels of costuming. There was no like mandatory requirement for costuming, and needless to say, there was some gorgeous costuming. Rihanna played Angrod and had her full like Angrod costume, and our Luthien was in like a gorgeous homemade Luthien dress and everything.
Wow.
I just had my two really minor characters, so I just differentiated by what hat I was wearing. So I had.
Did you use like a baseball cap and just turn it around?
No, close. So Mablung I played with a baseball hat turned around backwards. I had like a black cap turned around backwards, and then Maglor I had like a sort of a fitted winter cap, but it was red. Well,
right.
like maroon. So I'm like, because he's got red hair, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna have the red hat when I'm playing Amras, but I had the hat like pulled all the way down almost over my eyes. I was going for the like soulful, moody artist look, and I was accused of making Amras instead sort of look like a rapper, but anyway, I did my best, but it was fun. We had a great time. Sarah Brown played Kurafin.
Lovely.
Yeah, it was good. It was very good. So yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Sharon played Galadriel, and
Like Yellowborn.
who played Celeborn? Oh, Catherine, who the artist who did so many of the landscape paintings and stuff.
Awesome.
She was with us, and she was. And Alan Sisto from the Prancing Pony podcast did Thingol.
He was on our podcast the other day on Time That's Given Us. It'll come out in a couple of weeks, and he just couldn't stop talking about being Thingol. He really enjoyed it. It was so funny.
Yes. Yeah, he was in GoToWebinar. You can change your name. You can like edit your name throughout the course. So every time he popped up, he had like changed his name. So he was having fun with that. He was like, Thingol, who always listens to his wife, and and that kind of thing. It was good. It was good.
That's great.
So no, it was a lot of fun.
Was that recorded?
Yeah, it should be in there. It should be in there. If you have Mootcast, it should be in the set. Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was cool. Yes, exactly. Murray says he was King Thingol, but shorter. Yes, that was like another one of his descriptions. Yeah, no, it was great fun, and we had wonderful discussions about film later on that evening as well, which were really great. Sparked a lot of interest. Yes. Hey, Cecilia, good to see you. Yeah, yes. Mary, we had who was the narrator. She did a great job. That was
that's great.
That was really fun. So yeah. Anyway, so that's our report from Mythmoot, which was fantastic, and we had we had a wonderful time there. We had looking forward to just a couple of things here. First, we have our next digital moot. Middle moot is going to be fully virtual this year. We're probably going to be not doing in-person moots, probably still for the next, through the end of the year. We're probably thinking middle moot. We definitely are planning October 10th. And that's so, people can attend that. But most importantly, the call for papers is open through the end of August. So if you missed Mythmoot and you would still like to participate in another opportunity like this, Middle Moot is not as long as Mythmoot. It's only going to be a one-day thing like our regional moots generally are. But there will be opportunities for folks to join us there as well. So there we are. The second announcement, something we announced at Mythmoot. We have a new Signum Shop. Which I wanted to share with folks. We've been meaning to start a Signum Shop for some time, and we finally have done it. So I just wanted to show you. You can either go to the website there that I had on the slide, or just go to the Signum University site. We have a blog post here with the link. Oh yeah, excellent, very good. Yeah, I should probably have my browser working properly. There we go. And then you can just sort of click through here to the Redbubble site. Redbubble is the service that we're using for this, which is really cool because they not only make really good stuff, but also they do international. They have international delivery places and stuff. So we were able,
that's
you know, we
great.
had people from definitely from Europe, I think from Japan, ordering already, and you know, able to get local delivery there, so that the shipping doesn't cost you for you know, an enormous deal. But anyway, okay. So just to show you briefly how this works, right? We have a bunch of designs, you know, Signum logos and stuff, which is always fun. But we also have more fun designs because we couldn't help ourselves. So the way that this works, if you go to a design like the Balrogs Don't Have Wings design, right? And you click on this, and then it gives you all the options. So you can get that design put on like any one of the, so you can get it on like a face mask. You can get it on a shirt of almost any kind and style and size. You can get it on laptop covers, iPhone covers, tapestries, coasters,
Spiritual boulders.
floor pillows. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Tote bags,
It's been an
aprons, the
inside
whole
joke.
thing. So
Oh my gosh.
you will notice that many of our designs, so, and you can get that with any of these designs. So you click on the design, and then you can get it on anything that you want, and it's really cool. So yeah, we have several inside jokes from exploring the Lord of the Rings in our store already. The spiritual boulders, of course, is one. Bob as a Hobbit is another exploring the Lord of the Rings joke. I've been saying I want a Bob as a Hobbit shirt. This is the one that is probably my favorite, really like deep Tolkien joke, and that's our Green Dragon logo, which is like a pub sign for the Green Dragon with the slogan "Great is our middle name" underneath. Very clever. So you can
That's
have the
very
Green
good.
Great Dragon without just confusing people or making them think that it's a
Right.
mistake. Now I can't help but notice that we don't have any film designs yet, and we should do that. So
know.
we're really interested in this is just sort of a start, right? We wanted to have a few out there, but we're very interested in expanding our selection here. So are there film themed stuff? Like, is there stuff from film that you've been thinking, like, I really want to have that on a shirt, or even like a sticker or something like that? Florian, I was thinking about a Bobway design. That was one of the things that did occur to me when I was looking at it over the weekend at Mythmoot. But I couldn't figure out how to make the exactly what to say for the Bobway design. But anyway, we'll so I just wanted to throw that out there. If there are things that you guys would like to see,
I'm sure
in the
there
design.
is. Oh, y'all, Marie, you should set up a forum thread. Have people
Right,
put ideas
yes.
in there.
Yeah,
You know, 'Cause
and
I'll bet there is stuff.
absolutely.
I like the Eucatastrophe pillow. That's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I would like a variant that says "I need a Eucatastrophe button."
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, you know, I was also thinking, Dave, I was like, you know, the little Eucatastrophe thing. I'm like, how adorable would that be on a kid's mask, right?
Mhm.
Like a kid's face mask. That'd be pretty classic right there. Marie says
But that's exploring Lord of the Rings. We need a walking tree. Oh, that's Grifflet, actually.
that's Griffin.
Never
That's
forget.
true. Walking tree, never forget shirt.
And or 2020, burn it all down.
Burn it all down. Yeah. Campaign shirts would be really funny, actually. Lots of possibilities
yeah.
for campaign shirts. Fan or 2020, burn it all down. Yeah. Yeah.
Appropriate.
I like it. Anyway, yeah. So feel free, if you have suggestions, send those suggestions along to info@signumu.org. So info@signumu.org, and always happy to get suggestions. There was one suggestion that came in during Mythmoot, which immediately we were like, okay, this has to happen, and you know, so I'll be expecting this design to be released sooner rather than later, I think, because someone was noticing when we were kind of you know, just kind of browsing through, that one of the objects that you can get the design printed on is a coin purse. And so somebody was saying, well, obviously we need a purse that has ear. Who are you? written on it, right?
Mm.
So we can get the talking purse. And I'm like, and as soon as
Perfect.
I think it was Kat Sass who suggested that, and we were like, well, yeah, okay, obviously, right? That obviously has to happen now. Anyway, okay, cool. Yeah, would be happy to uh, uh, put other suggestions that people had. So that's the other thing. So new fun Signum thing, and of course the store helps to support Signum. It's we don't make an enormous amount of money from it, of course, but it does. We'll bring in a little bit of passive income to Signum, which is always a help, of course. So that's.
Well, you never know. I mean, you could be building a whole new new enterprise here with this.
That's right. You never know. You never know. Okay. Florian suggests a thinking fox design. Yeah. No. I can see it. All right. Okay. But let us get down to business, because we should get down to business. Okay, because we got a bunch of things to cover tonight. The most important of which is Arvel. Okay, so we've got connections here between season 5 and season 4. Let's start off by trying to remember what on earth happened in season 4 with Arvel. So Arvel decides to go with Turgon, and that decision, her decision to join him, one of the things, of course, that we were spotlighting was the fact that she was making a decision. We didn't want Arvel to go along with Turgon just as a kind of attachment, right? Like, because she's a girl and living in her brother's house, she just
following in his wake,
kind of packed along with Turgon and with the rest of his luggage, right? We didn't want that. So we had Arvel. In fact, the process of Arvel's decision making was a little theme, or a little subplot there in season 4.
We actually had her be like an active advocate on behalf of her brother, right? That she brought in, and not only that, but she actually influenced people to buy into
folks from Nevrast. Exactly.
Right.
Yes. So now all I have to do is remember exactly what the rationale was, what the argument was. I remember that it was a positive, not a negative thing. That, for Arvel, the relocation to Gondolin wasn't about retreat, right? It wasn't about escaping and getting away from stuff. It was about playing a particular role, right? It was about, it was for her a kind of taking action. Ulmo had sent this vision to Turgon, right? And he was following through on that vision as well. And yeah, as Rhiannon and Maria are reminding me, and thank you, you guys are so useful at reminding me of these things, it was about preserving the essence of the Noldor to be ready to take action later. Exactly. So it was forming a refuge, but it was never supposed to be an end, right? It was a means to an end, and the end was always the protection of the people. But it was a strategic move in the war against Morgoth, and that's very much how Arvel saw it, right?
And I remember us talking about the fact that why she gets so dissatisfied is it's like Turgon's kind of preserved things in amber.
Yes.
There's no changing. It's not changing. It's like it makes her impatient that he seems more interested in just having things be petrified as opposed to this proactivity that she had really bought into.
Yes, I think, and as I recall, her uneasiness, right, her unrest here at the beginning of season 5. Obviously, we had decided from the beginning that we did not want her just to get bored.
Right.
We didn't want her just to be sort of like the person who can't keep her attention on things very long, right? So instead, we wanted this to be like basically a difference of opinion between her and Turgon, and the easiest way to play, because we know the way in which Turgon is going to go wrong, right? We have to be a little bit careful not to make him go wrong too quickly. He can't be all the way down the road that he's going to get to when he's going to reject Olmo's message, right, later on. But I think that the way we want to play this is for Aradel basically to see it coming, right? She anticipates. She can tell that things are going awry. She can tell that Turgon is already is showing alarming signs already of shifting from into a more permanent and kind of desultory retreat.
And actually, her pushing back like this could make him defensive, which actually could increase him, like his commitment to that path. You know what I mean? It's like she even could be part of the agency that has him take that direction because he, gets invested in defensive.
And certainly from the outcome, right? I mean, when the thing with Eol happens and he follows her back, and basically he will be in a place at the end of the season, at the end of this plot line, where he's going to be saying like, well, see, look how that turned out, right? And feels reinforced in his own opinion. So we can certainly show her attempt to have a her attempt to make a change, right? Her attempt to shift things around, kind of having a perverse effect on Turgon's own point of view by the end of the season.
I would think that we would actually start this season, she would be troubled. In other words, from the first time we see her on screen in this season, she's troubled.
Yes.
Because it's got to be a hard decision for her, right? I mean, this is not just overnight or in one conversation she decides to go. It's got to really kind of almost be like tear her apart, sort of. It's like a really hard decision. So here we saw her last season being this advocate, and now we come to her and she's troubled in spirit, so to speak.
And I agree that needs to be like when the curtain rises in Gondolin in season 5, things are not well, right? Exactly. I love Marielle's suggestion. Marielle was just saying that we could have him. The impetus of it could be his making of the replica trees. Remember how he makes the replica trees of gold and silver? His making of those trees and some, like speeches that he makes about that and everything could be the things that lead her to think, okay, hang on a second, brother mine, why are you doing this? Why are we doing this? Like, and now we have settled down forever in this little sheltered paradise that Olmo has led us to, and our troubles are behind us, and now let's like settle in for the indefinite future of like secluded living in Gondolin, in this heavily gated community that we have built here, and with
a strict HOA.
Exactly. and she's like, hang on, like that wasn't the plan, right? That was never the plan. The plan is not to settle down here forever. The plan is not to, just close out the rest of the world. It's to, this is part of a larger strategy. Okay. Marie said we did show that he was starting to work on those trees, but a speech this season will work. Right. Exactly. So it maybe he's like, he could have taken a long time working on those, so maybe, or may again, he just makes a speech standing between his two replica trees. Right. And it's just, I don't think she needs to have like a foreboding. I don't think she needs to have foresight. We have to be careful. We're at risk of overplaying foresight this season, right? We already have Fingolfin having a significant prophetic insight, right? That's going to lead to his final battle. We had the dreams, of course, last time. We were suggesting some kind of foresight, possibly also with Ignor and Endreth maybe, but anyway, so
Well, and I don't
yeah.
know that it's necessarily foresight. I mean, what I could see is a little bit of backsight. So, I mean, I could see almost a
Yes.
scene where he's doing this speech where she's in her mind saying, wait a minute. And we have like a back flash to him talking to her last season.
Right.
Because remember, we did talk about that he really has to kind of enroll her in this,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
This is season 4.
Yeah.
And we could have a little bit of a, reminder on
Yeah.
screen of her in her memory of him saying this
Right.
stuff and how the two just don't match. And she's
Or
like,
even
what
just
the
in
heck?
dialogue, like, hey,
Right.
you said this. What the heck?
Right.
That
Right.
would be relatively easy. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I agree. I don't think it should be a like, my heart tells me that Turgon shall,
Right.
but rather just like, I mean, it's just a conclusion that she draws by paying
Well,
attention.
it's like what changed, something changed. And that's not this, you are not talking about the thing that I was advocating.
Exactly. They, and it really is a question of her holding. This is not a question of her. She's not the one who's shifted, right? She's holding to the original vision, and he's not. And they've not yet come to a like absolute loggerheads, right? It's fine, but she can sort of. This is the point at which she begins to see the drift, right? So the question, and Marielle was asking this question as well. When she leaves, are we intending to have her plan B to leave forever? I'm thinking not. What if her proposal?
I'm thinking big fight. I'm thinking there's like
fight.
a big clash with Turgon. He's
Okay.
super defensive. He may even get to the point where it's like, my word is law. Like he gets like this, my way or the highway, kind of. And she's like, okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But she doesn't leave. She leaves to kind of, I just need some space kind of thing, as opposed to being like, I'm out of here forever thing.
And she would want to, she's not leaving just for a change of pace, right? She would have a plan. She'd have a purpose for what she's doing. So she doesn't just want to go hang with the Feanorians because she thinks they're cool, right? She wants to go to the Feanorians. And so even Turgon's resistance there. I mean, in the text, he explicitly, he's like, don't go, you should go only to, to our brother Fingon and don't go to the Feanorians. And she's like, don't you tell me, right? I'll go to the Feanorians if I want to.
You're not the boss of me.
Exactly. But again, that I think is an opportunity to show the difference there. She's like, I want to strategize. It's important for us to connect with the Feanorians. What are we're going to turn our backs on that now? Like that's the direction we're going. So yeah, I mean, again, I don't think that there is no element of you're not the boss of me, but Turgon is very, my word here is law. That's very much his attitude. And we'll see, that will, what will be really interesting is to kind of play that off on either end, right? That is when he pulls that with Arathel at the beginning, and then when he pulls that with Eol at the end, right? And Eol is going to be very much, you're not the boss of me at the end. He's going to be that very explicitly and very aggressively. And I think, we're going to want to think about how that looks both times, right? Both at the beginning and at the end. Turgon is going to look, he's going to his own, and again, we can sort of show how this whole experience is actually pushing him in a negative direction. Right? It's making him more ossified in his perspective. It's making him more stubborn. And yet, when he does it with Eol, the second, it's much more justified, right? So, we see it, we support it, and yet we can see that it's sort of more dangerous. But Stephen H., I agree. He is going to allow Hurin and Huor to leave. Absolutely. Again, we can't make him we can't let him just flip a switch, right? We can't make him into bad Turgon yet. He's a long ways away from bad Turgon. He's got the whole Nirnaeth, he's got the Hurin and Huor thing and the whole Nirnaeth experience before he goes all the way down the road that he's eventually going to go, when he says no to Ulmo. Our job is to play the long game on that, because it is going to be several seasons down the road before that happens. But to make sure that we're setting that up, right? That we're preparing for that. And this season,
we're seeing the beginning of
that. Absolutely. It's the very first steps of that. And again, I think the Eol situation at the end, Turgon is going to look good at the end. I mean, he's going to look good. We're going to be on his side. When he passes judgment against Eol and has him thrown off the cliffs, I'm thinking people are going to cheer right when Eol gets chucked off the cliff. I mean, I could see us arranging that he looks strong and just and everything. And yet Idril, I think, should be the one who has misgivings, right? Who kind of is the heir of Aradhel's misgivings, perhaps. And she could express some concern about sort of the direction that this is going. Not that he's over the edge or anywhere near the edge yet, but the direction in which he's in which he's pointing. Yeah, Florian was also thinking Idril she's clearly the obvious candidate to have to be the kind of dissenting, not dissenting voice, but dissenting
troubled.
Yeah, dissenting mood right there in the final scenes. And she is insightful, Marie. I agree. Idril is very wise. Yes.
So like Marielle said, he's doing the right thing for the wrong reason.
Yeah. Exactly. So Aradhel's plan. So I would think that Aradhel would, when she leaves, she would say, I'll come back in and check in with you again.
Right.
Right. But I'm totally going. Right. And she does plan to go to the Feanorians because why wouldn't she go to the Feanorians? I mean, she would know that one of the things that was one of the strongest counter arguments against her going to Gondolin was she had a good relationship with the Feanorians. And so when Aradhel is kind of taken out of the political picture by through her isolation in Gondolin, one of the natural kind of ambassadors between the people of Fingolfin and the Feanorians is out of the picture, right? And so one of the things that she would want to do is check in with the Feanorians. How are things going with them? How are relations between the Feanorians and the Fingolfinians? And so so she would certainly want to do that as well. Marielle suggests maybe she envisions herself as Gondolin's connection to the outside world. If she, and I kind of like that, Marielle, if she is. If she is holding to that concept of we have this is sort of a temporary not a temporary thing exactly, that's not quite right, but this is one stage of the plan, right? We are supposed to make a refuge until the time comes, right? She's gonna say so we should be keeping up with what's going on out there, right? We should be in conversation actively with them. And I agree, we shouldn't open the gates. We shouldn't have lots of people coming and going. It's crucial that Gondolin remain secret, which is why only one or a very small group of people should only very occasionally sneak out, right? But that is necessary, and that can be her proposal, right? And what she's sort of envisioning doing there. I like that. Okay. Let's see. So her journey through Nan Dungortheb will happen prior to Haleth's people entering that place. Yep. Okay. So she will be our first introduction to Nan Dungortheb. That's very interesting because it means that when Haleth is like, what's this place called? Nan Dungortheb? Sounds great. Let's go that way, right? Then the whole audience will be like, oh, no, because they've already seen it, right? With Arathel, we need a kind of horrifying sequence, right, of her traveling through Nan Dungortheb and her getting separated from her escorts. So yeah, we get that. Now let's see. Interesting. Sorry, thinking about the potential connection or parallel between her leaving Gondolin and the Adain migrating to new homes. I think I don't see a very direct parallel because it's not a migration necessarily so much as it is just I prefer, rather than thinking of her as migrating, I prefer thinking of her as just stepping out for a bit, right? Going on a mission, essentially, right? And her planning to report back. I think that I like better how that works. But of course, picking up on some of the news, and especially the discovery of men, is certainly something that she's going to be interested to hear about. And okay. Let's see. Okay, so like Andreth and Ignor, her love story with Aol is tragic and ends in death. Certainly, it is also tragic. This is the season of dysfunctional romance. I don't think we're going to have another season which has a higher density of dysfunctional romance than this one. This is our big dysfunctional romance season. Between the requited but unfulfilled and bitterly frustrated on Andreth's part, relationship between Andreth and Ignor on the one hand, and the consummated but weird and probably abusive relationship between Arthel and Aol. It's weird. Yeah, no, we will get more. It's not going to be our only dysfunctional romance. Maria, I agree. Tarmiriel and Arpharazon gives us more opportunity for dysfunctional romance later on. But yeah, it's the
there's a high density this
high
season.
density, exactly.
There's a
And
lot
yes,
of them.
Stephen,
Yeah.
it's certainly true. Turin and Neonor will count as dysfunctional romance as well.
Yeah,
But again,
that's
I'm talking
probably
about
gonna be a whole
density, right? We've
pretty
got
much the
like
whole season.
2 major
Yeah.
love stories in this season, and both of them are dysfunctional, right?
Right.
Yeah, so, yeah. Anyway, Florian says, I can't wait for the Queen Baruthiel season. Oh, yeah, Queen Baruthiel is going to be a big character. You know that. Absolutely. But anyway, okay. So we do need to, and of course the timing, right? Arthel is going to meet Aol, not at the beginning, but near the beginning of the season. And then we're not going to do the return to Gondolin with Maiglin and then the death of Aol and the death of Arthel until like episode 10 or 11. So it's going to not frame the entire season, but it is going to come near the beginning and then come near the end. And certainly the whole sort of meat of the relationship between Andreth and Ignor is going to happen in between, right? So this is going to mostly frame, not entirely. I mean, the Andreth and Ignor will still be continuing until his tragic death in episode 12 or 13. So it's not like it's going to, bound it entirely. But it certainly will serve as a kind of framing mechanism for it. And in between episode 2 or 3, when they first meet, and episode 10 or 11, when the tragic culmination of the Arthel and Aol story comes about, we're going to have to be going back to them and showing the progress, the increasingly dysfunctional progress of their relationship and of Maigwin's growth and development, right? The weird and unhappy, childhood of Maigwin. So, yeah, I just wanted to point that out because there will be plenty of opportunity for juxtaposition between the two along the way. There might be several episodes. There might be several episodes in which we can actually juxtapose them, like cut from one scene, one pair in one scene to the other pair in another scene. Arthel and Aol and Andreth and Ignor. So it certainly does behoove us to think about them in parallel to some extent. We don't have to make them closely parallel, but again, we're going to be kind of bringing them together. But okay, let's get several people commenting on this, so let's go ahead and get to the big question. which is Aravel's being not wholly unwilling in the famous phrase of the Silmarillion, that she is not wholly unwilling. A more dubious phrase applied to a wedding I don't think I've heard, right? She's not wholly unwilling.
I think in modern parlance, that's what they mean by consent, right?
I think so. Yeah. I remember us talking about this to a certain degree, but the thing is, I mean, it is. I think Aeol is like the absolute. He's going to be like a textbook abusive relationship, which is in the beginning he's charming.
Right.
I know we've talked about this, right? And she's. That's what gets her. I mean, she's a sharp cookie, right? So it's not like if he showed his true colors right away, she'd be like, "Whoa, I don't think so," and then it wouldn't be a not wholly unwilling thing, because she'd be like, "No, get away from me, dude."
Yes.
But I think he's going to be charming, and I think given her, I mean, she's got to have a little bit of fallout from this whole almost kind of a split from her brother, or at least temporary split in her mind, so she's kind of fertile ground for someone to come along and be charming and be attentive and be, quote unquote, listen to her, at least at the beginning, kind of thing. So he pulls her in, which is so exactly the way this kind of being operates. They're very, very good at the beginning, pulling in their prey, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder also if there needs to be something more to it in terms of like, I wonder if there needs to be a connect, I think it needs to be not purely kind of sort of romantic attraction.
Yes.
Right. Like, I think it needs to be connected in some way to like sort of what she's going through and her reasons for leaving. Like, and it shouldn't also be like rebellion. It shouldn't just be like, this will show my brother. Like I think
no.
Right.
Yeah.
I think part of his charm, as you say, Trish, should be something about him offering her the opportunity to engage with the wider world somehow.
He
doesn't make a lot of sense because it's
like.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I got so excited. Or he ends up being the person she wanted her brother to be, right? That he says all the stuff she wanted Turgon to say, because he's going to listen to her.
Yeah.
This isn't going to take place over huge, long dialogues, but you know what I mean? It's like, that's going to probably be part of the attraction. It's like, he gets it. He gets it.
He does have
right
to
now.
get it.
I think in his mind, what would motivate him to do this is, I'm trying to remember. It seems like we talked about this. I mean, his motivation would be he wants to possess her. He wants her as a possession, right? So that's what his motivation is to do this. But he's easily able to sort of take on this persona. He innately knows what's going to, attract her, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for her, I think you're right. I think it would be, she really this guy gets it. He really gets what it is I've been trying to tell Turgon all this time.
Because there's only two options, right? Either upon meeting him, she is so swept away or, controlled or ensorcelled or whatever. She's either something happens to her to make her forget all the stuff that we've just been talking about. She's like, no, this is important. Like, we have to hold to the vision, except Aeol's really dreamy. Like, she's got to like change her mind completely and abandon it. Or she has to see it as part of that picture. Right. She has to convince herself that her joining herself to Aeol is going to further these ends that she's committed to. There has to be this makes me feel dirty putting it this way, but there has to be a political element essentially to the relationship with Aeol. It's not just personal. Because if she's just indulging her own self, then that's her abandoning the principles. We just set her up as defending quite significantly.
Yeah. And I think the one important piece that we can't lose here is if she's not wholly unwilling, that means that she's kind of unwilling.
Yes.
And so
She
the
has
question
reservations.
becomes, right, and the question becomes, why was she unwilling? And if she had reservations, as you say, why would she marry this dude? And
Right.
I think the way we deal with that is we're setting her up as this person who's acting on principle. So the reason she would enter into this marriage would be on principle.
On principle.
So the unwilling part probably comes from the fact that she probably actually doesn't really even like him all that much. She
Right.
probably thinks he kind of he probably puts her teeth on edge, and maybe she doesn't find him attractive, whatever. But basically, like the direction I think we go in is that on the personal side, she actually doesn't really like him. She actually doesn't care for him personally, but she's interested in him, or what a relationship with him like will enable her to do.
Right. And there are two things that we know about Eol, two things that we're going to establish about Eol, that the text establishes about Eol, that provide opportunities. Like, because the obvious question then becomes, what does Eol have to offer, right? Why does she believe that marrying this random loner dude who hides in Nan Elmoth is going to be a massive political advantage for the Noldor? There are two possible things, right? One is his smithcraft, Galvorn, right? He does have this remark. I mean, Anglaka, it's the swords are really good, right? I mean, this is, he is a legitimate resource as far as that is concerned. I agree. That's one possibility. That's pretty minor, though. Like, for her to marry the dude for
Just
his
because
swords,
he makes great swords.
right? I mean, like, that's a little shaky. I think she's.
I know he's a little off, but he makes these great swords.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. But I think the cooler opportunity, and Florian was suggesting this, is the dwarves. The Noldor.
There you go.
He's got relationships with the dwarves like none of the Noldor do, right? And especially since thinking back,
have to make him a player somehow. He has to he's got to factor in. He's got to matter.
Exactly. Thinking back to the scene which we just acted out at Mythmoot, Caranthir did not do the world's greatest job at establishing positive relations with the dwarves, right? He managed to not screw it up entirely, right? But the dwarves aren't exactly, falling all over themselves with friendship and volunteerism in the direction of the Noldor, right? And Arathel could realize that. Somehow we have to figure out how she realizes that. But Arathel could realize that, and he could. That could be one angle that leads. Basically, she sees him as the link, the opportunity, right? Her opportunity. So maybe she's imagining herself moving forward as the sort of the new Noldor ambassador to the dwarves, and he is he's her entry ticket, right? He's already trusted by them, but she needs him for that, because it's only his access to the dwarves that would make it possible.
And I have the same question Nick does, which is, why does she care about the dwarves? Which I think, I'm not saying it in a negative way. It's like we need to establish why that would be important to her.
Allies in the war, right? She would see. I'm not sure that she would necessarily have to have like a specific plan. Like she has a whole like plan of campaign in which the dwarves play a critical part. I don't think it has to be.
Or just the fact that she finds out he's got that relationship opens up a new idea for her, right?
Exactly. What if we could establish a real friendship, a real alliance with the dwarves? Right now we tolerate the dwarves. They pay Caranthir tolls, and they do their trade, and both sides seem to prosper from the tree. We have an amicable relationship with the dwarves. But what if there were an opportunity for us to really establish a close bond that would let us really bring the dwarves on board as part of the siege. I mean, she also might see well enough that the dwarves could be really valuable allies when their enemy, of course, is holed up there inside of mountains, right? And the dwarves, they know mountains and they know tunneling, right? So they would be handy to have about. The
And I'm
Noldor, of
thinking
course, are
some of
good
the
miners and everything too, but
right. I'm saying some of the yeah buts we're getting in the questions. I think we could actually, her argument with Turgon could set this up. In other words, in her argument with Turgon, it's going to be all of this, but we wanted, the whole idea is to fight the good fight here in Middle Earth, and he resists that. So she comes out like, kind of almost impetuously, like, I'm going to make it happen. And it doesn't matter that Finrod or whoever it is has a good relationship with dwarves. It doesn't, like, she's going to make this, she could come out like, by gosh, I'm going to make this, this plan work that we originally did. And it doesn't matter that whoever has relationships with the dwarves. So I think it would be easy to show that this would be a natural thing for her. Right. Now I have a question, which is how do we and how quickly do we turn this into kind of a classic abuser-abusee relationship? Because she's going to end up in that position of being the abusee of, not Stockholm syndrome, that's not what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean? It's like she stays on, in spite of the fact that, this is happening to her, and I'm not sure how do we make that transition sort of thing? Because unfortunately, this whole season can't be this one story, darn it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Oh, Nick, I think, so next, yeah, but here, Nick continuing his trend of just raising objections to every good idea that we have, says, but Eöl is a misanthrope. If he's going to have some trouble, he's going to have some trouble getting the idea of creating a greater alliance. Oh yeah, of course, Nick. He's not going to be in favor of it from the beginning. He has no.
Oh no.
He has no intention of following through on this, right?
He's saying what he needs to say to possess her. That's the whole thing. He's lying.
Go along
he's
with
just
it.
being. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's saying what he knows he needs to say to pull her in. Basically, he's not really earnest about any of it. And
it's not even necessary that this be entirely a deception, right? Right. Maybe she kind of knows, like, I can't really count on this guy to do this. Right. But she still sees the opportunity and believes that she can make it happen.
Right. She thinks
and she can make it happen without right. Yeah. That's a good one. They change him. Perfect.
Which of course is another classic pattern in an abusive relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Part of the tragedy of the relationship is that it's gonna be her personal failure to achieve. Like, what would make her more disillusioned than anything than like all of her grand plans and dreams just like failing utterly, and she just ends up being Eöl's wife, like stuck in his, and because that's so as we set this up, the question, the natural next question is, why would she then flee him again and go back to Gondolin, the place that she was disillusioned at? And the only reason she would do that is if she was even more disillusioned here.
Exactly. she's giving up. She's giving up.
Defeated.
Yeah.
Defeated.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I really like that idea. She would not be blind to his shortcomings, right? But she would be looking at him, I think, essentially as almost like a kind of like she'd be looking at him as raw material that she thinks she can shape. Okay, right. He's kind of, he's bitter and he is off to the side, but he has power, right? There's real power in him. And there is, Eöl is a strong character. He is a powerful person. If he set himself to, both his skills as a smith and his own personal presence and everything, he's a force to be reckoned with. And if she could harness that, right? If she could recruit him essentially to be on board, you know, again, this whole thing with the dwarves is this new angle that she's thought of. Nobody knew that this schmo existed. I mean, some people knew he existed, but nobody's really paid any attention to him, right? Everyone's overlooked Ale. Everyone has just been like, okay, creepy guy wants to stay by himself in the little woods. We'll let him do that. And she's, you know, and so she's thinking, okay, no, wait, this is an opportunity that nobody else is taking advantage of.
Right.
I think I could do this. And
you know,
yeah.
there's a certain degree of almost pride, I want to say, or arrogance on her part, like the way we're saying this about how she thinks she can change him. I think that's in keeping with her. She's, you know, she's Turgon's sister. I mean, she's a powerful woman in her own right, right?
Right.
So for her to think, you know,
and overconfidence is definitely a problem for her.
Overconfidence. That's it. Yes, that's it. That's it. And so she's like, oh yeah, he'll, you know, I'll be able to bring him in. I'll be able to change him.
Right. Now, Nick, I want to object to your objection. Again, you're going way too far there. It's not true that she's never shown interest in these ends before. The ends are the same that she's been committed to all along, which is the cause of the Noldor in their struggle against Morgoth. And she went along with Turgon because she was convinced that this was, you know, through the insight given him by Ulmo, that this was a really important step in that bigger process. And now she left, and she has all, you know, she is like, okay, this is why I wanted to leave. Like, I knew in my heart there was some reason why me staying there, you know, and now I've been justified, right? My decision to leave Gondolin has been justified by this new opportunity that I've stumbled across, right? To gain a new ally in him. And Nick, I do like the idea that he's like a more useful Feanor. He's like a slightly more docile Feanor. I mean, again, his skill as a smith would remind her of Feanor in some ways, right? But he can be guided. He can be shaped.
What if that's part of her, like her dream? Her dream is like, I can make him into the new Feanor.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Exactly. So, you know, but Nick, as far as the dwarf angle, like the reason I think the reason the dwarf angle strikes me as not a step too far, but as necessary, is that anything else would seem to be a departure. Her eyes are on the big picture, right? She is a visionary. That's why she caught the vision. She helped to further the vision of Gondolin, the Gondolin vision, as a subset of the larger Noldor strategies against the enemy, right? That's where she is. So if she instead is just focusing on like this one guy, like I'm going to recruit a smith because he makes good swords, again, like that's not enough. It's not enough. That's just a distraction. That's a that's a side
wonderful,
quest.
And he loves me so much.
Exactly, right. Or we just make it her, you know, wrapped up like you know, exactly.
We cannot do that.
You know, I think one reason this may feel a little bit artificial is probably if it was up to us, like if we had a clean field, these are not the two we would put together. You know, this is not a couple we would make, but we don't get together. That's not. We got to make it fit.
You got to make it fit, and I think it can work. You know, but again, the challenge ultimately, you know, the biggest challenge that we have, and I think what will determine in large part whether we succeed or fail with Arathel, can we make this story work within the character that we've established for her? And again, it seems to me if she's just going to go off on a side quest, and sell herself. Was she going to prostitute herself for swords? Like, is that what's happening here? Like, again, he's a smith and we can, because in very few other ways is he like Feanor other than his smithcraft, right? So anyway, this is, but again, her eyes are on the vision, are on the big picture, right? And so this is why I think that this unexpected opportunity that she didn't anticipate and none of the other Noldor have seen, and she would know that none of the other Noldor saw this opportunity, right? To exploit Eäl's connection with the dwarves in order to establish, to work towards bringing in the dwarves as a significant ally against Morgoth. she sees the, the vision of this opportunity, and she can see how this would fit. This is the next step, right? Now my brother is back in Gondolin, and the Gondolin thing is well and truly launched, and I'm a little bit worried about him, but hey, it's okay. It's going fine. Now I thought I was just coming out to like catch up on the news and to connect with, and here, bam, this opportunity has fallen in my lap, right? And this could change everything as far as, the balance of the war with Morgoth. Again, to me, that would seem to justify her changing her plans and being like, okay, I was going to do all these things. I was going to go visit my brother, and I was going to go visit the Feanorians. I'm just going to not. Instead, I'm just going to stay here in Nan Elmoth. Why does she do that? Why would our Arthel do that? And again, my answer to that question is she has to, unless we're going to have her held against her will, or entrapped or ensnared or ensorcelled in some way. I think if she's going to choose it, it has to be chosen within the context of what she cares about, what she's committed to.
And that's the direction I'd like to see. It's her free choice. She doesn't get, magicked into it,
Yes.
and she doesn't get strong-armed into it. She kind of walks in on her own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, somebody asked, I think it was Stephen asked, why would she take Miglin with her if he's a part of Eol? I mean, my simple answer to that is she's a mom.
She's a mom. He's a part of her too.
Yeah.
And here's where I think we have a fun opportunity. We get like one paragraph on Miglin's childhood in the published Silmarillion. We have a fun opportunity for some really cool and ominous foreshadowing, right? Arthel, looking at her young child, right, at her young son, would see, we have lots of opportunity for fun dramatic irony, like she would see that he is going to play a pivotal role in the war with Morgoth, right? Which he will, right? That's true, right? Or even like that, that he's, and when she goes, I mean, obviously she's going to take him back to Gondolin with her because she believes that he is on her side, right? And that's clear enough from the text, right? That that she believes that she and Miglin are like a unit against Eol, basically.
Right. Right.
So,
and Nick says it's not entirely unlike the visions that Miriel was getting.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, Lincoln says the breaking point is him beginning to abuse Miglin. I mean, we know Arthel is going to die because she's going to throw her body between Eol and between Miglin and Eol's spear, right? She's going to take the wound for him and die of it. So this to me is not hard, right? Again, Trish, as you said, she's a mom, right? She loves her kid. That's not going to be
that motivation won't be hard.
No, I don't think so. I don't think, especially if she feels like, she can easily tell her. I mean, remember we were talking about her disillusionment and her disappointment and how everything has turned out and how she feels that all of her grand visions have failed. She would have one consolation, right? When she's leaving.
That's right.
At the end. At least there's Miglin, right?
Yeah,
Something good has come out of
and
this.
he has a grand destiny.
Exactly. And Miglin and his grand destiny.
Thank God she didn't live to see that.
Exactly.
You were right, except one little thing.
Right. Exactly. She's almost perfectly correct about his grand destiny. Yes. So, but anyway, Nick, getting back to this other thing again, Nick was challenging me and saying, I was saying she's not going to prostitute herself for swords. And he's saying, well, aren't you suggesting she's going to prostitute herself for dwarvish allies? No, remember, she's wanting to shape Eol. She wants Eol, right? She's not just using him. She's not, I used the word exploit before, politically speaking, right? To exploit his connection with the dwarves. But she's not going to just use him her plan isn't just to use him as a tool. Her plan is to shape and manage him, right? To bring him out of himself. She sees his great personal abilities, right? His strength of will, which he has, his great power, which he has, his ability as a smith, right? Which
And
makes
he's
him.
exerting himself to please her also, so he's
He
going
would
to
be.
be putting best foot forward with her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I think that her vision for her marriage, right, is that first she like helps to shape Aol and gets him to share her vision, right? And then the two of them together go among the dwarves and so she sees Aol as a very valuable and fitting long-term partner for her,
A
right?
Celeborn to her Galadriel, so to
Well,
speak.
I'm not sure that's the best possible illustration of what I'm going for here, but yeah, something along those lines.
But, she's like, Galadriel did it. I can do it too.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, she sees him as again.
You don't need to insult Ale like that.
He obviously has a lot to offer, right? I mean, he does. He has a lot of potential. He has a lot of resources, and there are also lots of red flags, right? But she's going to be ignoring those, believing she can overcome that stuff, right? Believing that she can shape him and form that he is going to, and he's going to give her every reason to believe that because he's going to go along with her. So that's her vision. She sees him as a fitting partner, right? And that he can share her vision, and that between the two of them, they can play this crucially important role.
Are we going to show Aol sort of? I mean, I don't even know how we would do this, but are we going to allow the audience to see before she does that he's playing a longer game? Or do we discover it?
Well, okay, so hang on. Let's back up from that one step. We've been talking about this from Aradhel's perspective primarily.
Right.
Why does she make this choice? Let's go into Ael's perspective for a second. Why does he do this? We've said he ultimately he's possessive, right? He sees her, he wants her. I think that there's a diseased element in his desire for her from the beginning. I think that he is projecting onto her his bitterness against the Noldor. He wants to subjugate and punish her ultimately, because of his hatred of the Noldor. He desires her. She's beautiful, and she is significant, right? But by ensnaring her and bringing her under his power,
dominating her,
dominating her, it's like he's getting his own back against the Noldor. It's like he's symbolically elevating himself. He feels weakened, right? He feels like emasculated by the Noldor, right? Who have moved in and taken over the land, and there's nothing he can do about it, right? So he's going to get his own back, symbolically at least, against all of the Noldor in his relationship with her, right? So, I mean, we can, psychologically speaking, that works pretty well. Yeah. Now, Stephen H says he doesn't have much reason to be bitter. They're the reason why he's able to do businesses at all. Yeah, well, that's what they say, right? But we know that despite that, I mean, that's precisely what they say when he has his conversation with Curufin in the text, right? But yeah, no, he's not necessarily reasonable about that, but yeah.
Probably a little bit of paranoia or some of that, like imagined flights and things like that, right? It doesn't have to be an actual,
right? Absolutely,
real thing.
Absolutely. So, okay, and I know we have to work out his backstory, Marie. We'll get to that. I want to just, since we're talking about Arthur here, I want to focus on the relationship itself. So, Trish, if this is what's in his heart, if not his mind, right, and there's an extent to which he could feel himself to be in love. Like I don't think he must necessarily be the cold and passionless spider at the center of the
I agree with that. Web. I don't think this is one of those hand ringing wahaha kind of things that he's planning this. I think it's just his nature. I mean, he's smitten with her probably to start with. The idea of owning her and dominating her isn't what's foremost in his mind, but it's his nature to do that. And that's what I'm thinking is we could see signs of it. It doesn't have to be verbal even, you know, he's got a collection of butterflies or, you know what I mean? It's like we see them being,
exactly right.
you know,
We show him like pinning, bugs on a card, Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Let
or,
me
you know,
just
he's
add this
got
to my
some kind
collection, skewer. Yeah.
yeah, some kind of like weirdness, you know, like, oh, that's just really weird that he's got that,
Right.
you know, like,
Right. He's like
kind of
really into
thing.
taxidermy or something,
Yeah, right, like,
uh,
geez, you know. So yeah, so it could be just these weird little hints. It doesn't have to be like we see into his mind or
Right.
like I said, he's not doing like a villain monologue or something like that. But I'm wondering, it even could be the kind of thing where the hints are so subtle that it could still take the audience kind of by surprise. In other words, the audience still could discover at the same time Erthel, but then they go back and rewatch and go, oh, there were actually signs all the way along, and
Absolutely.
I just missed them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the same sort of.
So here's what I would really love. I would love the whole first encounter, possibly the whole first episode with Arthel and Eol, to look absolutely like a romance.
Right.
To have no hint. So for somebody who has no idea, to make it look like just the most like beautiful and romantic thing.
Some enchanted evening.
Yeah. There's going to be a big opposites attract kind of thing going on, right? I mean, it's going to be dark meets light. We got the White Lady of Gondolin, right? And you've got Eol the Dark Elf. You've got her, shining whiteness and his blackness, and like them reaching out to each other, and he will, she is like light entering into his dark world, right? And he is like this, this dark foundation of strength that she's joining herself to. And I mean, oh my goodness, there's a lot of possibility for just playing it as, and so again, I don't want this to be Arathel's only motive. I don't want her just to be like, oh, Eol, and be swept away and throw everything aside. But I absolutely think, that would be, yeah. Nick says if he's stooped and not super attractive, it could even seem sweet, right? He shouldn't be beautiful. I don't think he should be gorgeous.
Well, we've got him. He's cast already, isn't he? Didn't we already cast Eol?
I'm trying to remember. Like we've like introduced his backstory and cut it so many times that I can't remember.
Mark
okay,
Strong.
We did. Mark Strong. Who's that?
Yeah.
I forgot.
I'll go look him up.
Who's Mark Strong?
Yeah. It's not. I know we went through all this, but.
Yeah. Is
I think what you might know him from.
Yeah. Can anybody just tell me so I would, because I don't remember the 2009 Sherlock
I'm looking
Holmes
him up
movie
on
enough.
IMDb. Oh, he's perfect. Actually, I was looking at his picture. It's like, yeah, definitely. I'm trying to figure out what he was in that you might recognize.
Corey, did you watch Shazam?
Yeah, Shazam.
Nope.
He was in
I didn't watch
Shazam.
He's played Mr. Knightley in Emma.
He did?
Not the not the recent one, but apparently. Oh man, you guys are all citing things that like I've either only watched once a long time ago or haven't seen.
Yeah, it's sad. I'm not seeing anything really.
Yeah, so
Tinker
this
Tailor
is the
Green
the
Lantern.
A&E 1996 Emma.
He played Robin Hood. Oh, he played Godfrey in Robin Hood.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sir Godfrey and Robin Hood. Yeah. Yeah, and Septimus and Stardust, I don't remember that well enough.
Septimus and Stardust. Yeah. He played Lord Henry Blackwood in Sherlock. Oh, he played in the Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr.
What's his face? Yes,
he played
exactly.
Lord Blackwood. That was the bad guy, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mark Strong. Yeah, he played Lord Henry Blackwood. So he was the guy that in the first movie with those two.
Yeah.
That that they had to fight against.
Yeah.
I remember him really. He was really good there. Yeah, that's okay. I don't know if you remember that or not. But
Nick is pointing out that he was actually in the movie Stockholm. Like he's actually played the source of Stockholm Syndrome. as it happens.
Oh God, is that typecasting? I'm not sure.
I think we've kind of typecast poor Mark
He
Strong,
does
but it
tend,
looks
yeah,
like
he
we're not
tends
the
to play
first.
villains. But I think, yeah, no, his is good. But I'll tell you what, I mean, you remember him from that Sherlock Holmes movie. He definitely has that dark strength thing going
Mhm,
for him. I
mhm.
mean, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. Okay, so right, so if we play off so there can be a real legitimate attraction between the two of them at the beginning, right? There can be not necessarily love at first sight thing, but it can be a real romance.
Opposites attract kind of thing. Yeah,
Certainly an
absolutely.
opposites attract thing. And as who was so was this Nick? Who was no, it was Marielle who was saying a lot of romantic leads have a lot of red flags that get ignored for
Yeah,
convention's sake. So yeah,
they
there's certainly. I
do.
mean,
It's true.
it's not like Romeo and Juliet is the most red flag free relationship of all time, right? Yeah, exactly. So fine.
Or Otello and
Yeah, exactly. And
Desdemona.
Desdemona, certain number of red flags there also. Yes. So, yes. Anyway, so right. So we have this, what looks like, so again, it would be fun to leave the audience not knowing how to react. Right. Like they might have a bad feeling about it, but again, it might look like one of those like, oh, like this is going to, like redeem him. This is not just going to be sort of like a shallow thing.
She's found the partner she was looking for in her brother that she didn't have. And
exactly.
This is, etc.
And he can respond favorably to her, her idea, as he tells her about himself. Then she'll be learning about the dwarves, and then she'll get extra excited and see that this, she's attracted to him at first. Remember, let's not forget that she does legitimately need help when she finds him, right? I mean, she's going to be fresh out of Nandun Gortheb, possibly like entering the stage chased by a giant spider, right? I mean, she legitimately needs help at the beginning. And so him taking her in and helping her is going to be an act of kindness to start with. And then she can, and so especially if he looks like the dark, awkward, not really attractive underdog kind of romantic lead who still rescues her, and he's got a lot of rough edges, but she's kind of into it. And, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Lots of reasons to think that this could be a really positive thing, right? And it seems good at first. He seems to go along. He tells her about himself. She finds out about his smithcraft and is amazed. He's not even a Noldo, for crying out loud, but look at what he can make, right? This guy's amazing. And then she finds out about his alliance with the dwarves. She's like happened across this guy who, and she feels the tension, right? She's totally aware that there's some chemistry there, right? And so she knows she has an opportunity as well. And so this is another reason for her to talk herself into this. And so she finds out about the dwarves, and then she talks about it, right? Like, oh, like, we need to, work together. And this is all part of the big, our struggle against, Morgoth and everything else. And he goes along with it. Marielle says, I'm making him sound a little bit like Baron minus the rescue part. Well, yeah, I mean, this was in
the first episode that we see them. Yeah, right.
Absolutely. I mean, this is, in fact, Marielle, I would want to play it up, right? I would love to have him like spy her through, like he's like looking through the bushes, right, and spies her, showing up white in the darkness, right through, from a place of hiding. Absolutely. So yeah, I totally want to play up the parallels to Baron and Luthien, because these two are the anti-Baron and Luthien. There are actually a lot of parallels within the Silmarillion between Aredhel and Eol and Baron and Luthien. Absolutely. Exactly, Stephen. We want when we get to Baron and Luthien, the audience thinking about this, I would love to see with Baron and Luthien, with their meeting scene, the audience all to be cringing, right? The audience all to be thinking this is a terrible, terrible idea, right? And so we kind of pull the reverse on them, right, in the next season. Having kind of lured them into thinking this is a really good idea, only to have it turn out to be a complete and utter, end up with murder, essentially. I mean, like, this is like the most complete train wreck of any relationship. And I don't think there are any relationships. When we're talking about other dysfunctional relationships, not even Turin Turambar had a relationship as bad as this one, ultimately. I mean, his incestuous relationship with Nienor is tragic in its own way, but it still wasn't as dysfunctional as this. I mean, they had a good marriage. If it weren't for the fact that they were brother and sister, that could have panned out. It doesn't end like this. But anyway, so right, and even though the relationship ends in a double suicide, it's not because of the well, it kind of is indirectly. It's complicated, but you see what I mean, right? I still think this is the worst relationship in the entire Silmarillion. And as Marielle says, it does seem to be the only one that ends with a domestic violence fatality. Yeah. Well, okay. Iron and what's his face? Possibly. But anyway, never mind. Doesn't matter. Point is, Broda, thank you. This is really bad, right? This one is very bad. If we lure people into thinking this might be, an against the odds successful relationship at first, and then it goes and ends up tragically, horribly, and then we have Baron and Luthien beginning with parallels, I think we've got a lot of really fun opportunities there. Okay, so
I like that idea a lot.
yeah, I think it's going to be fun. Lots of really fun opportunities. Okay, so, and by the way, let me hang on. I think we have other. No, we don't. Okay, let me just stay on my slide here. I just want to make sure I didn't have other slides that I was meant to get to about Arthel and Ael. We do still have the issue of the backstory of Ael. Now, remind me, because I had thought we cut all of Ael's backstory. We kept thinking about adding him in season 4, and then we kept postponing, and then finally saying, forget it, let's just save it for season 5. What did we have of him? We had him in I remember him being at Cuivienen, right? I mean, he was like one of the spokesperson of Vari, in the great debate at Cuivienen. Yeah, was that it? Okay, that was it. That was all we got from him. Okay, so we already have, but you know what this shows, Marie? Leadership potential, right? Maybe not pointing in the right direction, but again, if only he had the right wife, right, who could bring him into line and, get him pointed in the right direction. Okay. Okay, and we did have good. Rhiannon and Nick and Marie are all reminding me that we did have Telkar talking about him. Okay, so Telkar told Caranthir about an elf who made evil weapons. Right. She mentioned the weapons, and there was some that was not right about those. Right. But he wasn't mentioned by name. Okay, great. Okay. Excellent. So we need to do all the rest of his backstory. What have you been up to? What have you been up to, since Cuivienen? But I think we have the opportunity there, right? She needs to find this out. I mean, like, they've got to talk, right? He's got to tell her his story. So we have plenty of opportunity for backstory, which we can give as dialogue, or which we could, because we don't have to go into that many details necessarily, right? But okay, that's where I was remembering more stuff. Okay. Right. Yeah, good. Nick, you were suggesting that we have him tell his story to Arthel. Yeah. Yeah,
that's a good idea.
One of the interesting questions, though, is how do we and this, Trish, goes back to your question about his like abusive nature. Like, how do we reveal it, right? How soon,
Right.
how much, and how fast do we reveal what he's really like? Again, I think it would be fun to have him look again like not red flag free, but sort of redeemable, right? To have everybody at the end of this first big episode think this is going to be a really touching love story, right? And
also this is going to be a power couple.
Power couple, absolutely.
Oh,
this
yeah,
is, and especially this happens early in the season, right? So it sort of looks like, man, like we've gotten these two together early in the season. What might they accomplish? We know Arthel has big plans, right?
Right.
And so we can include in that first episode him telling her things about himself, and they can all be true, but of course they can all be limited, right? He's only telling his own perspective. This could culminate in a betrothal scene, which almost has to happen. Doesn't it almost have to happen in the like clearing where Melian and Thingol got together, right? Directly recalling that.
And the thing is, his behavior, there could be things that he does that for him are just really natural for him. But
Right.
to us, it's like, whoa, dude.
Right.
Like controlling, right? Like it must happen now, or it must be here, or, you're late, or whatever the thing is, like an outsized reaction in some cases to
Right.
something,
Right.
just like fleeting. But for him, he doesn't think twice about that because that's just who he is. But we're kind of like, ooh, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing is what I was thinking, at least early on. That would like be phase 2, right?
Yeah.
Phase 1 is what you just said about the coming together and everything looks rosy. And then this phase 2 is kind of like, there's a little something off about this guy.
Right. Yeah. A great question. Do we show his weird silent servants? Oh, heck yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Creepy silent servants? We absolutely do that. Why wouldn't we do that? But Trish, I wonder if that's not the way we can start it, basically. Even
That's a really
before
good
we
point.
show him doing something, we show like evidence of
which
what
of course
he's
he
like.
thinks is completely natural, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't see an issue, and she's kind of like, ooh.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I don't know why it just flashed on Lurch from the Addams Family.
What, the silent servants? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. His silent servants, I'm thinking they're Avari, right? Who have been with him since the beginning. He doesn't have to be absolutely alone, does he? He could have kind of creepy hangers on, but he is like they never speak. Like we never see them speak. And they like we can show them like deliberately avoiding speaking like to her, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly, Ron. And I was thinking we avoid the anthropomorphic dishes, but it's kind of along those lines, right? Yeah, but Rhiannon, I mean, you mentioned that Beauty and the Beast is exactly what we're invoking at the beginning here, right? This is a Beauty and the Beast situation where Aradel thinks she can handle this, right? Aradel thinks this is going to be a Beauty and the Beast situation. She's not going to delude herself. She's going to see the red flags. She's going to know that he's got some rough edges, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like the anthropomorphic dishes, except completely opposite, says Nick. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. What does he tell about his backstory? What's Eol's story? First, he would start at Cuiviénen, I was one of the original elves, by the way. Like, I totally awoke by the shores of Queevy. And she'd be pretty impressed by that, right? Oh, just like
Yeah, she would
Grandpa,
be.
right?
Yeah.
Did you know Grandpa? And he would know Grandpa, right? He would clearly remember her grandfather, right? And he, but you know, he didn't go to Valinor, and he would have a story for that, right? An explanation. And she would see in this, right? Again, because she is in this mode where she's like rationalizing and she's believing, she's overconfident, right? In her, she would see his story of Cuivianen about how he did not think it was the right thing to go. And keep in mind, to the Noldor who have returned to Middle-earth, the decision to not go over to Valinor in the first place, there's something to be said for that, right? She could see in him, in his story of how he like led the charge to not go to Valinor, as somebody who was perhaps wise and whose wisdom was unappreciated even by her grandfather, right? Not to mention, he's also shown himself to be an independent thinker who's not afraid to take bold and decisive and unpopular action, right? This is good raw material for the kind of leader that he could be, right? Again, with the proper encouragement. Absolutely. So I like that. Marielle, absolutely, he would react with sadness to learn about Finway's death, right? She would tell him about Finway's death, and he would be, he would absolutely express sympathy for the death of Finway and say how much he respected Finway. And he would have known Muriel too, right? Yeah. Yeah. Stephen Cover says, ladies are always suckers for guys who are contemporaneous with their grandparents. Yeah, a little different among elves, though, Stephen. Come on now. The whole, you know.
So she'll be accused of having granddaddy issues.
Yeah, granddaddy issues. Right, exactly. But as Nick says, you know, older men, it happens. It certainly, then again, especially among elves, right? Again, she would see herself as, again, like this makes him more valuable as an ally because he's more than a peer, right? He is a peer to her grandfather. It's almost like she's imagining now. She would have pictures of her and Eöl, right, as being like, you know, so there's in the like power setup here in Beleriand, right? There's Thingol and Melian, and there's the Noldor over there, right? Thingol and Melian with Círdan, their ally, and then there's the Noldor who are all more or less allies with each other, right? And then here's this like, you know, free radical here, right? He's you know, he doesn't have a big following, right? He doesn't have a whole lot of resources. So on the one hand, it might seem like she wouldn't be gaining much, but he's a legitimate other player. He is the peer of Thingol, right? He is the peer of Finway. This is a major player to bring into the situation. And then, of course, when you get the dwarf thing added in, right, but what would we really gain? You know, why ally ourselves to the one random loner dude? Again, answer the dwarves, right? Yep. That's all good. Good. Michael Dennis is saying even more than with the dwarves. Could she see him as a way to bridge the Avari Noldor gap and expand the alliance among elves? Yeah. Goodness. He that all kinds of opportunities. He was a leader among the Avari, right? And there must be many Avari, even though they haven't met very many. The Noldor haven't met very many in Beleriand. There must be many of the Avari still around in Middle-earth. Maybe she, in addition to thinking about making allies of the dwarves, she also harbors big dreams. I think Aradhel's a big dreamer, right? She harbors big dreams of like going out with Eöl and going to find and bring across the mountains, you know, Avari, right? To help them, because this is their fight too. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Now, Nick, I think it's very ironic that you're the one who is primarily resisting me on the dwarf thing, because let me put this another way, Nick. This is your chance to get a dwarf plot. You want a dwarf plot this season? Here you go. If you don't take this, I don't know how I can help you. Okay. Because we have an opportunity here to work a dwarf story into one of our main plot lines for the season. I'm not seeing it any other way. So, it might be kind of take it or leave it on the dwarf plot opportunity here. Because I would like to keep the dwarf thing going, but I don't see any reason why this wouldn't work. But whatever, we'll see what other people think about this. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so he tells her the story about Cuiviana, and that goes over like a house on fire, right? She's a big fan of that, and we get lots of conversation there. This could segue to Thingol, right? I mean, he's peers with Thingol, and he lives just their neighbors, right, with Doriath. So she would ask him about, do you know Thingol, and you live in like their special, meeting spot, Thingol and Melian. So surely you must be friends there. And he'd be like, yeah, not so much. And here, obviously he's going to tell that story. This is a story of oppression, right? About how he would make this look like a betrayal of him by Thingol, right? That, I would think that that's how Aradel would hear it. That Thingol has been guilty at least of, ungraciousness and ingratitude to him, instead of embracing him as a potential ally and seeing all of the wonderful potential that she sees in him. Here's Thingol extorting gifts out of him and grudgingly giving him this one little bit of woods to hang out in. And
which of course sounds just like Thingol.
Right, exactly. And what's more, with the tension between Thingol and the Noldor, she's not going to have a hard time believing this, right? As Florian points out, Thingol has been claiming to rule all of Beleriand and to just like grudgingly permit the Noldor to live on. So she would see the parallel with how he treated Eol, right? And so she would again see them as natural allies, and he would conceal the fact that he also hates the Noldor with bitterness and a fiery passion. That wouldn't come up originally. Okay, so then what else? Oh, he has to tell her about the meteor, right? And his discovery of Galvorn. Okay. That could be something that even comes up prior to the other stuff. He doesn't have to do it in chronological order, right? I mean, she could see like the black armor that he has, and she's a Noldo, right? So she's like, hey, whoa, weird metal. How'd you do it? Right. Yeah. So he could explain, and this would again raise him in her opinion, right? Yeah. Come on, Nick. You've always wanted to write a romance that had a metallurgical subplot, right? Like, it is our mutual love of metallurgy that brought us together. I mean, come on, that's a kind of a new angle, right?
Well, we know we're going to have that someday with two dwarves, with a romance story with two dwarves, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a given, right? That's a given. Yes. Tell me more about, the smelting. Yeah, exactly. No.
Tell me more about your alloy.
That's right. Yeah. No. Oh man, so much potential. So we could get, but now my question is, how do we get the real story? Originally, of course, we'd been originally planning to work Eol into the season 4 plot, right? Show him interacting with Thingol, show his discovery of Galvorn, all that stuff. We were planning to integrate, and we ended up sort of cutting it, right, entirely. I like the idea of him. We can set up his backstory and really weave that into Aravel's admiration of him and also strategizing around him, right? That can all work really well, I think. But how do we show the reality?
At some point, does she have any? I can't remember. Does she have any interaction with the Fëanorians once she gets together with Eol? I don't think so.
Well,
It's not
okay,
cordial,
so
right?
yeah, I mean the Silmarillion in Silmarillion mode, right, does not give a lot of details, right? We don't know exactly. What we do know is when Eol meets up with Curufin at the end, Curufin knows all about it, right? How did he know?
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Would he know? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, he knows all about it. And so she has to have come out like the story, even in the text, even the published text itself, Tolkien cannot have intended the story to be that Arthel is entrapped within Nan Elmoth and she never leaves again,
Right,
and nothing
right.
is ever heard of her. Because how even Corafin's response when Eol comes and says, "Hi, have you seen Arthel and my son?" He'd be like, "What are you talking about? I've not seen Arthel in decades, centuries, right?" So I think, yeah, I mean, how do they even find out? So I think there has to be, and again, here I think we can make this progressive, right? I think if they get married and, they speak their vows to each other and then immediately he's like, great, now I'm going to chain you in the basement, right? Like that's, first of all, it doesn't do justice to the complexity of the psychological situation that we're wanting to build. But it also, yeah, there are all kinds of problems with that, right? And I think, therefore, if we're going to have his abusiveness increase over time and his possessiveness increase over time, and therefore the restrictions on her would increase over time too, I would think she would travel with him at first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I would think that she would travel with him at first. And the first hint, I mean, so that could be a first hint, right? We could have maybe the second scene with them in a later episode, right? After their beautiful romance, beautiful but slightly creepy romance of the first episode that they're together. In the second one, we see them out traveling together, and she could be like, "Okay, let's do the thing. Let's start it, right? Let's go and talk to the Sons of Fëanor. They're nearby here, right? And then I can tell them about our marriage, and we can get together." And he doesn't want to, right? He doesn't let her go and reconnect with the Sons of Fëanor like she wants to. Again, he's not chaining her in the basement yet, but we see the first step of his restricting her, and it could sound sort of like they he's just like asking, like, "Oh, I'd really rather not," whatever. It doesn't have to look like abuse yet, but it's the first hint of his control, of his restrictions on her. Nick is suggesting they could run into Amros. Yeah, that's true. Amros is a relatively neutral party. Yeah. Good. Florian says they could meet dwarves, but Eol would speak Khuzdul with them and ignore the fact that she doesn't understand, and he wouldn't teach her the language.
Ooh, that's great. I like that idea.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Nick says, "Okay, what if they meet with Amras and it doesn't go well?" Which Eol spins to the idea that the Noldor will never accept him as he is. Until he takes his rightful place as the fourth king, they will never accept their marriage, so he uses this to isolate her. Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, I can definitely see. I mean, we want it to sound like concerning but still kind of reasonable, and she's willing to go along with it willingly because, again, she's still trying to work on him, and she sees this as a long-term project and everything. But again, we can kind of see, and this, I think, Trish, is where we can get into the kind of red flags that you were talking about, the kind of like him sort of overreacting in ways that kind of take her and the audience aback a little bit, right? That can be kind of part of this. Yeah. Cecilia, exactly. No, very, very few people do know the dwarves' language, but Eol's one of them, right? That's one of the things. Again, he is, and she knows this. She's like, holy cow, you know the dwarves' language? She would be it would be one of the things that would impress her, right? And that's exactly it. They have been very closed. Certainly, they have not been teaching their language to Caranthir, right?
Are we going to see him misinterpreting what they say? You know, like he interprets for them to her, but then we see him not actually telling her, you know, accurately what they said. You know what I mean? It's like we see it in the subtitles.
Right.
But...
We get a gap between his translation and the subtitles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sure. Yeah. No, we can start there. And so then eventually this will transition to him just confining her. Right. He doesn't let her. But Mygwen's birth should come fairly quickly. Right. So if the riding out and meeting Amros adventure, which I like, Nick, happens. Sorry. If that's scene 2, right? Or the second bit with Arthel and Eol, the birth of Mygwen, I think, has to be bit 3. Yeah. And that would be the first excuse to keep her at home, right? And again, at first it seems like he's, you know, charmingly attached. He's like touchingly devoted to their son, when in fact, like, he's possessive, right? He's possessive and overprotective. But it could still look maybe endearing, potentially, possibly. Then we can show things getting darker after that, and that helps us to bring in Mygwen as a child. When we come back for their 4th scene together, will be, you know, Mygwen can be a kid, you know, somewhere in the elementary school years or something like that. Ooh, Mariel, I like that. Mariel says one little flag can be that Eol should always call Mygwen my son. Right? She can refer to him as ours. But
oh yeah, absolutely.
He always refers to him as my son. And remember, there's that weird bit where he doesn't name him until he turns 12.
Oh yeah.
She gives him a name, right? Also, him not wanting him called by the Quenya name is going to be another indicator, right? It's going to be another step down that road. Lomion versus Mygwen, exactly. But again, first creepily, Lomion, he doesn't call him anything. He just calls him my son, right? Which again can sound cute at first, until it starts sounding really weird and creepy and then disturbing. And then we can have her telling a story of Gondolin and the Noldor to young Mygwen later on with his eyes all aglow, and then Eol breaking in and breaking it up and like, you know, don't you tell my son about that. And, you know, and that's when that can be when finally his resentment against the Noldor is revealed. And when I would think that could be the real turning point where she begins to, she's not wholly given up yet, but she begins to suspect that she's back to a loser here and that this is not going to work out. And she would become depressed, I think. I mean, I gotta think she would at this point. And then Miglin, you see, is going to rescue her because it's Miglin who is going to be saying, Mom, let's run away. I want to rescue you, Mom, from this bad situation. We do need to have Miglin being brought with him and learning from the dwarves and stuff. So, that's, we need a teenage Miglin learning with his father and being corrected, and that being not a great situation, and Miglin's own kind of simmering resentment. Also, remember that Miglin is his eyes, right? His penetrating gaze, him seeing through things, is what he is noted for as a child. And so having Miglin be the one who, all the way through from the beginning, we've had this sort of like appearance of goodness. She herself has, she's made this sort of castle in the clouds, right? She's made this fantasy of what her life with Eol could be, what their career together, what they could accomplish together. And she's still kind of clinging to this, right? And he sees through that. He sees through her. He sees through him. He can be the one who, what if the truth about, he's told the very Eol-friendly versions of his backstory. What if it's Miglin who perceives the truth, right? What if we could even do a thing where, like, he's told the story about like his meeting with Thingol, right? For instance. And then we have like Miglin, it comes up again later on, and we have Miglin, sort of like meeting his father's eyes, staring into his father's eyes, and we and we cut to like a flashback of what really happened, as if Miglin is actually like reading that in his father's mind, seeing through his father's deceptions and his facade into the dark truth that lies behind it. Yeah. Nick, I don't think we can possibly, in this kind of a situation, I don't think we can wholly avoid some Oedipus complex stuff. I mean, he's gonna look like an Oedipus candidate. I mean, I don't think that's avoidable. Nor do I think, we need to worry about that too much. Good. Cecilia points out also, Miglin could be the one who realizes and tells Arathel about the mistranslations, right? That the dwarves could be trying to warn Arathel, right, about Eol, and he's mistranslating it and sort of explaining it away in various ways.
What if all his interactions with the dwarves make it like abundantly clear that they're never going to cooperate with this guy? That her
Yes.
sort of dream of like, Eol can be the one to unite our peoples with me by his side, and the dwarves are just like, yeah, we tolerate this guy, but because he makes good swords, but like he's not the great ambassador that she.
Right.
Exactly. So
Right.
her vision of him as the fourth king of the Eldar, her vision of him as like the king of the Avari who will rally all the Avari to the cause against Morgoth. That's going to die very early, right? Because he doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to go. He refuses to go and find the other Avari. But she could still cling on to the dwarf idea, right? And the dwarves, but yeah, it becomes clear that that's definitely not working. They don't trust him. They don't like him. They don't trust him. They respect him, but they don't like him and they don't trust him. And Miglin can tell her, they've been trying to warn you this whole time. Like they don't trust him. And of course, it'd be really interesting is if he comes and he tells his mother the truth about what the dwarves are saying, almost the whole truth. He would exaggerate it a little bit, right? He would mistranslate too. His mistranslations would be less evasive than his father's, right? But there should still be a little twist there, right? Showing
He'll be
he'd be what? Sorry.
His mistranslations would be self-serving.
Yes.
It wouldn't be.
Yes.
He wouldn't be telling the
Right.
truth.
Right.
He's exaggerating a little bit in the other direction for his to
Right.
help him accomplish his own ends, because by then he's decided. Maegwyn is the one who has decided we need to go back to Gondolin, right? I want to be in Gondolin, and so his goal is to get his mom to leave so that she will take him back there. Yes, and so we see him twisting things just a little bit, just showing that he is willing to bend the truth, showing that the apple has not fallen that far from the tree. But I don't think we want to play Maegwyn as super, super creepy. I think we want to leave the question of his destiny open. I'm thinking that
Right.
Maegwyn, I think it'd be fun if Maegwyn looks almost completely good, right? Like he's had a bad upbringing, right? I mean, his home life has been nothing to brag about. He definitely has some issues, but those can be explained by his poor nurture, right? In the house of an abusive father. Of course, he's going to have some issues, but at heart, he's a good guy, and his mom has these strong convictions about him, and so the audience should be rooting for her to escape with him to Gondolin. Right. And then he can finally become who he was meant to be. And he's now going to be in a positive environment. And, what might Maegwyn, and she can see like, okay, no, I failed, but maybe I didn't fail. Right. Me and Ael were not able to do anything at all. In fact, none of the things we had wanted to accomplish ever came to pass. But Maegwyn, maybe it's Maegwyn who will be able to do these things, right? It's Maegwyn who will be able to accomplish these things, and the audience maybe believes that it's possible.
I was gonna say, what if at this point the audience has no reason to believe that's not true, unless of course they've read the books,
Right.
and maybe at this point we're like Ardell, you got to get out of there,
Right.
and so when we see Megalyn like kind of like exaggerating to persuade his mom, the audience should be rooting for him. It's like, we should,
right.
It should make us a little uneasy, but we should be like, hey, look, you got to convince
right.
her
It's a good
to get out of here.
Yeah. She is both stubborn and also depressed, and but he's going to encourage her and help her along. Yeah. And then, so when she dies for Maegwyn's sake, this is the culmination of her own despair for herself and all of her visions for her own career, all of her visions for what she could accomplish and what she was going to be able to contribute to these have all fallen to the ground. Right. But Maegwyn is her last hope. Right. And so when she throws herself in front of Maegwyn and takes the spear, this would be her sacrificing herself. Julie points out there's a kind of parallel between her and Muriel here. The sacrificing herself for her mighty son. Yeah. And Nick, the uneasy feeling that I think we could leave everybody with a very uneasy feeling about Maegwyn in the final episode. I don't mean of the season. I mean this plotline's final episode, whenever that is. Remember that he is just totally and creepily silent the whole time, right? He keeps answering nothing. Maegwyn answered nothing is one of Tolkien's classic little short sentences, and Morgoth came. Maegwyn refused. He doesn't say anything in response. His father appeals to him and he says nothing, right? The judgment is passed against his father and he says nothing again. He is cursed by his father as his father is about to get thrown off the precipice to his death and he says nothing, right? The questions of what is going on in his head, I think, are that's how I would want to play his silence there at the end. not a smoking gun. We don't show Miglin as villain. We don't reveal that at the end or something. But raising this question of like, okay, what exactly is going on in this guy's head should be a question people are thinking when they see the Miglin scenes there at the end. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. Exactly. Unsettling silence. That's what we're going for there. Okay. Good. So we're running late. I think we should probably call it there at the having established the story of Arthel and Aeol. I think there's a lot of really good material here. I think this could work out really, really well. I'm excited with this outline that we've established here. We have other minor characters among the elves that we didn't. This was the biggest thing that we were trying to get to tonight. We still need to talk about like what's Thingol up to, what's Círdan up to, what's going on with Galadriel and Celeborn exactly, and some other things like that. We also need to talk about the bad guys. We need to talk about and speaking of the bad guys, we need to talk about our escaped prisoners. We need to get Rog and Anail out of jail this season and figured out what the plan is there. And Florian, do we need to get Gilgalad born this season? Possibly we do. Probably we do. And a session devoted to the worldviews of elves and men. Agreed. But I want to wait on that, Maria. I think let's do the more like direct plot stuff first, and then we'll get back to the thematic stuff after that, I would say. So next time we'll do the miscellaneous elves, and then if we get through that and to the catch and release elves, we will then also talk about the bad guys too. Yeah.
They get tagged. They get ear tagged.
They do. They get psychically tagged. That's just what happens.
True. They do, don't they? Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so miscellaneous elves and villains. That's what we'll shoot for next time. And the next time in question,
I knew we weren't going to get to the miscellaneous elves tonight, but I didn't want to say that up front.
Yeah, it's all right. That's all right. Exactly. The Thorin Gwethel plot line. Agreed, Florian. We gotta figure that out. Yep. Okay. Right. Good. No, excellent. I think that we did the big job. That was what was important.
That's right.
We've got to do justice to the Arthel and Aeol story. And I am really looking forward to our like anti-romance, the sort of Beauty and the Beast thing at the beginning. Like that's lots of potential there.
Did we talk about, should we have a rose under a glass on a table someplace in his house?
Just a withered rose. That's all.
Yeah, withered rose.
A withered rose. I collect withered roses. Nothing creepy there. Okay. Very good. Thanks everybody for joining us. So yeah, we'll do that next time. Next time will be 2 weeks from now. Our next episode, our next session, will be on the 27th of August, Thursday, August 27th. Thank you everybody for joining us today, and look forward to further plot resolutions for next time. Thank you everybody. Thanks for listening, and Godspeed.
Hey, I noticed that I think my GoToWebinar schedule only stopped as of today. Do you need to be adding dates to it? Yeah. I looked earlier today, the email that I had gotten way back when, today was the last day on the list.
Let me see if I remember to change that.
Make a note. Yeah.
Let me just.
I assume I'll get
Let me see.
I'll get an update if you expand dates, I assume, right?
Well, no. If that was true, then yep, it is true. Darn it. We're going to have to do a new link.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, shoot. Indeed.
They don't let you just extend, huh?
No, not after the last session. That's one of my pet peeves. Well, darn it. All right. So, look out for the new link for season 5. I hate it when that happens. Oh well.
But we'll get the word out. Maria will
Film
get the
film
word
being-
out.
Some film being every 2 weeks, I often lose sight of it because. Anyway, oh well.
You have a
Okay,
few
no
other
problem.
things going
We'll
on.
set up a new session. No big deal.
All right.
And we'll get that moving
Awesome.
for next time. Okay. Thanks,
right.
everybody.
Man, that was
Thanks, guys.
another good one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you tweeting, Dave? Did you tweet?
Oh, wait, hang on a
Which
second.
means some.
Wait, hang on a second. No, we won't have to do a new one. I did set it up
good.
through next time. Next time is the last one.
Oh, next time's the last one.
Next
Oh,
time's the
good,
last
good,
one.
good.
So I can
Oh,
still extend it.
Extend it.
Whew,
So you
nick
could
of time.
now you could extend it, right?
time, yep.
Without having to do
Yeah,
that.
I
Okay,
can.
good.
I can do that. So no problem. I will
Excellent.
right after we're done do that before I forget. So okay.
Oh, good, 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 good.
Phew, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. No. So I can extend that. So
Yay.
27th will be next, and then we should be, as far as I can see, we'll be on the every other week schedule now. We should be able to stick to
Perfect.
this for a while.
For a while. All right. Perfect.
Very good. Thanks,
See you in 2
everybody.
weeks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Good night.
Although the theoretical budget of our hypothetical blockbuster may be unlimited, the production budgets of this and the rest of our fun alternative educational projects are unfortunately not. If you have enjoyed joining our production team, please consider donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.